Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday released the figures of the fifth cycle of India's tiger estimation, revealing that tiger numbers have once again increased in the country and now stands at 3,167 in the wild as of 2022. The tiger population in the country increased by 200 tigers or 6.7% in the past 4 years. The Prime Minister also released the tiger numbers while inaugurating the International Big Cat Alliance in Karnataka's Mysuru, the first of its kind in the country, organized to mark 50 years of Project Tiger.
मैं आप सबसे आग्रह करता हूं कि इन टाइगर के सम्मान में अपने स्थान पर खड़े होकर के हम टाइगर को स्टैंडिंग ओवेशन दें। Friends, India is a country where protecting nature is a part of culture. This is why it has many unique achievements in wildlife conservation. India is the largest tiger range country in the world. With nearly 30,000 elephants, we are the largest Asiatic elephant range country in the world.
Well, to talk more about tiger conservation and the challenges ahead, we're now joined by Neha Sinha, conservation biologist and author. Neha, the Prime Minister speaking about various issues and also celebrating tiger conservation in the country, the success of Project Tiger. But as you and I know, there are many challenges ahead. If you could, talk a bit about that.
Thank you so much, Gargi. Pleasure to be here. While it's great that tiger numbers have gone up by 200, and we've pretty much kept numbers stable since the last census, 2018 census, the fact is a lot of reserves in India don't actually have tigers. So there's a lot of inter-reserve disparity in India. So for example, the reserves of Odisha or Jharkhand, West Bengal are not doing well. So we need to figure out how to, connect different forests and connect different meta populations of tigers with each other so that they can naturally disperse. And the PM spoke about ecology and economy going together.
Right.
Taking a cue from that, it's also important to make the tiger a cross-cutting issue. So many new laws and legislations are being reconsidered in our country given our developmental agenda. One of those is the Forest Conservation Act amendment, which is currently in Parliament. And it has a proposed clause which says that areas around highways and roadways and railways are not going to be considered forest. And this is a huge issue for many wildlife who live, around highways and railways, because these are linear projects that tend to cut through forest. Historically, and even at the present time, there's also another clause that says that areas near the border will not be considered forest. And of course, the entire Himalayas almost and the Northeast, which is a biodiversity hotspot, and tiger forests are near the border. So we need to make tigers a cross-cutting issue. While, we can look at our legislation and we are free to remake our laws, it is important to take the needs of the tigers along and plan how we can sort of make an exemption for conservation when we are looking at new legislature. So I take his words to heart, and it's a very important aspect that development should not come at the cost of conservation, but we need to work more at making conservation and tigers a cross-cutting issue across all the changes that we are making.
That's right. It was interesting that the Prime Minister said that, there is no conflict between ecology and economy, whereas we know that on the ground in various states, this is one of the big issues that many conservationists have to push back on, the fact that there is, development projects that are threatening our wildlife. And it's interesting that the Tiger Report 2022, which was also released, speaks about this. It says that, a lot of the habitats are facing challenges from our, aspirations in terms of economic development. So that really is something we need to continue focusing on.
Absolutely. And, there are also other challenges in terms of the fact that human-wildlife conflict is still a huge challenge.
Yes.
50 years down from Project Tiger. So just last year in November last year, a tigress was shot in Almora. because she had come out into a bazaar in Almora, and this is the reality that tigers face. The moment they leave the tiger reserve, they get killed by highways, they get killed by trains, they get killed by people. Right? There's a lot of revenge killing of tigers as well. So, how do we move forward on this? How do we move forward and make sure that animals like tigers, wild animals that are actually roaming and free-ranging. It's really important to understand that these are free-ranging animals. Tigers are territorial. Each tiger needs a territory of, say, 100 or 50 square kilometers, right? So if we are to increase our tiger population, if I am to look 50 years into the future, because we've had 50 years of a glorious of important Project Tiger. If I look 50 years in the future, we can't consider it without looking at these thorny issues of dealing with conflict, of having better rapid response teams, and really to make the tiger at the heart of planning processes.
And so for that need to take the local populations along and ensure
Absolutely.
that the man-animal conflict is dealt with in a very fair way, and in a way that the local populations continue to support conservation efforts. We're also joined by Raza Kazmi, wildlife historian, conservationist and writer, and we were just talking about how we're celebrating 50 years of Project Tiger, but so many challenges still remain, and even as the numbers have remained somewhat stable, as Neha pointed out, and people talk about how at the turn of the century or after independence, we had 40,000 tigers, and how we need to really increase the numbers. But there are a lot of challenges on the ground. While there's some sanctuaries that don't even have tigers right now, the other issue is a man-animal conflict and the threat to our forests from economic development.
Yeah, hi Gargi. I think I agree what has been said about this entire issue. And if you look at the history of Project Tiger, the interesting bit is that despite the fact that the numbers have shown an increase over the past few years, the distribution or occupancy of tigers is actually much less than what it was in the 1970s when Project Tiger was launched in 73. So if you look at the old maps and the old data that was presented when Project Tiger was being launched, a bulk of India's tiger population came from what is known as the East Central Indian Forest of what is now Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and even northeastern states apart from Assam. So Nagaland had a significant population, Mizoram had a good population, Arunachal had a good population. So all these states have been doing quite poorly in successive the census exercise revealed that they have been doing quite poorly, and tigers have more or less gone functionally extinct in all these states, except for Amrabad and Nagarjuna Srisalam in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh and Simlipal. There are no other stable tiger populations anywhere in these states. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge that in the coming years, you don't just have to focus on the numbers, you also have to look at the occupancy, because that is the true benchmark of whether you are actually succeeding in conservation of tigers or not.
Right, absolutely. But at the same time, let's, also celebrate the fact that after 50 years, the numbers that we have, which is something the Prime Minister also spoke about, and the fact that this was launched in 1973 at a time when obviously, being a developing country, there were other priorities, but we have still managed to protect these spaces and done much better than many of the other, countries that have tigers in them. And 70% of the world's tiger population, wild tiger population, is right here in India. So that is a reason to celebrate.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, when you look at the project in entirety, it's been a huge success. And, if you look at how we have done at a national level or as well as internationally, there is no doubt that Project Tiger has been perhaps the most successful conservation project that at least Asia knows of, and probably one of the most successful in the world. So that is a challenge, interestingly, that in one half of the country, there's a challenge that we have succeeded in conservation of tigers by and large. And now we have to accommodate for the, increasing tiger population and how to manage them in such a way that the communities are on board and the byproducts and advantages of successful conservation program now spill over into the forests adjoining our tiger reserves and also the communities that are dependent on these forests. So that way there is, and all credit goes to successive governments as well as especially the field staff of all of these tiger reserves. For 50 years they have toiled very hard, often without any recognition, without much support. But they've proven that if the bureaucrats, the conservationists, and the political class all come together over a common goal, we can turn things around.
Right, absolutely. And Neha, final word to you. Yes, the focus on the forest staff as well. Raza raising an important point there because, we need to appreciate them more and states need to empower them more. But so even as we celebrate, our achievements but at the same time remain very conscious of the challenges.
Absolutely. And, in India, forest staff are expected to do everything, right? When it comes to maybe having an event, they are supposed to, set up the tent, the logistics, fighting forest fires even, and losing their life to forest fires and patrolling extremely difficult territory. And the tiger is truly a national animal. It's there in the salt water of Sundarbans. It's there in the mountains of Arunachal. It's there, on coastlines in some of the areas in India. So it's all over. But patrolling these places is extremely hard. And there's always been an issue in India of not having salaries released to field staff on time, not having full capacity, and these are structural issues that need to be dealt with the kind of political will that the Prime Minister was talking about yesterday. And these are issues that can be solved as long as we recognize that the hard work done by forest and field staff is something that needs to be looked at as a structural issue that needs to be solved. They have a lot of issues in terms of health insurance, in terms of not getting wages, in terms of not feeling recognized in the way other government officers get recognized. And these are, of course, remote places. These are places that are very far away from the mainstream eye. So we must continue to raise their issues and hope that the issues get solved structurally. They really are sort of the front line of conservation in India.
That's right, and we all love the tiger, and so we must, also recognize their service and their sacrifice that goes into protecting this animal that everyone loves in India and around the world. There are countries that, people have never seen tigers, but they just love the image of the tiger, and that's something to celebrate, that right here in India we're able to, protect the tiger and its flourishing. Thank you so much both for joining us.